The hype around the Paper Pro was massive, but what's it actually like to live with once the novelty wears off? I've spent the last 3 months testing the portability, the new color screen, and the writing and drawing feel to see if it actually improves my workflow. It's thin, it's light, but for this price, it has to be perfect. Today I'm sharing my experience and revealing the final verdict on whether I'm keeping it or returning it.
So first I want to get into the build quality. The outside is metal and the screen is glass. It's a textured glass, so it gives that scratchy sound here. Actually, on the new update, they added sleep screens here natively, so you don't have to do workarounds to do that. The build design feels very solid in general, and the nice thing is that it's not prone to fingerprints at all. You rarely ever see any on here. The back now has a lot more grip. It's almost like a paper cardboard texture. It's really nice when you're using it in one hand. It never really slips like that. I actually have dropped this twice, unfortunately. But one of them was on a carpet and the other one was with a case, I think. So I can't speak to dropping it on concrete with no case on it, for example. But it does feel very solid overall. I think one mismark for the build quality is no IP water rating. So there's no ingress protection on water. And that's something where a device of this size, where this could be a great little e-reader by the beach, would have been a nice option. And if they ever make another small version in the future, I think that's something they should heavily consider. There's also no fingerprint sensor. So there aren't that many devices that have those now, but I think for something this price, that could have been something that they included. Sometimes entering your passcode all the time when it locks and then you enter it again can be a little annoying, but is good for security generally. Now, regarding the Folio and the pen is something that you have to include in the bundle. I did a pros and cons video of the Paper Pro Move, and someone mentioned that they were able to select a return on just the pen. So that is an option. If you already own the large reMarkable Paper Pro, for example, and you only really need one pen, then you could potentially return your marker, because these do command a hefty price. But in general, if you're a power user, I think the Marker Plus is definitely worth it with the eraser. It can be rather annoying to have to go toggle to the eraser, go erase, toggle back if you're doing that constantly, especially if you're drawing, for example, which we'll talk about a little later. There is also a little bit of wobble when you're drawing straight lines in the marker because it is an active stylus versus the Wacom standards. Also, I've been using one tip for 3 months and I've heavily used it. So grinding it down kind of like a pencil every once in a while and rotating the tip every couple days can help keep it a little sharper, just as a tip for extending your longevity of the tips, because it comes with 6 in the box and some people report changing it every month or 2. So that's an added cost you're gonna have as well, in addition to the Connect subscription. And then the Folio, I can't really recommend these reMarkable ones. My reMarkable 2 Folio, for example, I've had for 5 years and it shows, some small signs of wear, but I can kind of clean it up and it's good. This one, the edges here are already detaching, you can see. For something that's pricey like that, that is a little annoying in general. It is an active stylus, so it fits here and then it connects. But in general, I do really like the system they have for the magnetic flap here. And the pen magnets are very strong in general. You can see I can kind of just throw it there. It's a very sturdy magnet and it does require a little bit of force to pull off, which is good in my opinion. Because reMarkable 2 users, that pen you will lose in your bag constantly. Now, getting into the screen, that is what makes this device very special. It's the Gallery 3 screen that has pretty vibrant colors. I've done a lot of comparison. I have a whole video where I compared Kaleido to Gallery to Prints. I don't specifically feel like it's better or worse than Kaleido. I think each one has their own trade-offs and advantages. One of the advantages here is really the yellow highlights. Those pop a lot more than on Kaleido, where Kaleido tends to look like a sand or almost like a tan color versus an actual yellow. Here you do get vibrant yellows, and that's nice. The downside obviously being the flashing. See there how much time it took to re-render. That can be a little distracting for some people's workflow. Should note, if you just use black and white, then the flashing is more minimal. It's when you introduce a color palette that becomes an issue. But a very important thing about this device is that the PPI increased from 229 on the big Paper Pro to about 260 something. I'll list it on the screen here. What that gives is generally just a little bit more resolution and detail. And so when you're looking at something a lot closer, like you tend to with this device because it's smaller, then that actually becomes very helpful. So in this DaVinci Resolve, for example, I can read the little timestamps down there. And even in things like your thumbnails, they look a little crisper and more defined. It's nice to see that improved. Actually, I didn't notice that. You can see on the new update, they have the new reMarkable logo there. In an effort to make this more pocketable, they did make it a 16:9 aspect ratio compared to some of these other small e-ink note takers that are a 4:3. You can see right here, it is much less wide. And so it does fit in some pockets. And so what that means with a 16:9 ratio though, is that sometimes scaling can be a little bit of an issue between your large paper Pro and your Paper Pro Move here. And so notes that I've created on the large paper Pro, for example, you really have to do a lot of pinching and zooming here. And that can be a little bit annoying sometimes, but you should note if you do auto rotation, then you do have the actual width of basically, I think I compared it, it's bigger than the RM2 in terms of the width. It's about the size of the 10.65 of the Manta or the V-Woods AI paper. And so notes are more editable in this manner, for example. Because of this weird aspect ratio, sometimes I'd recommend if you have a note that's a lot more vertical like that, then you can actually move the toolbar now to the top, and then that'll give you all the width of the screen. And likewise, when you're doing it in the landscape mode, moving it to the side will give you a little more vertical space. One huge frustration I've had with the aspect ratio here is that you can see in the menu system here, there's a blank spot here, and the Big Paper Pro Move has multiple pen tools. So you can do 2 pen tools at the same time, so you can quickly switch between them. There's room for that here, but I have not seen any update. And when you move it to the side, you can see there's like maybe 6 icons extra here, and there's still only 1 pen tool. It sounds really insignificant, but has been probably my biggest pain point for the reMarkable Paper Pro Move, because when I'm using different pen tools, because you do also have to be panning around a lot on this device. So, you know, if you're like zooming in and out a lot, and then you have to change pen tools, go here, change colors, go back, and then every time you tap on the screen, it does a dot, so you have to go back, and then I have to like reshape the size I want. I just find that sometimes it takes a lot longer when I'm trying to use multiple pen tools. So honestly, sometimes I just stick with like black and white because it can be rather frustrating. This is a bit of a pet peeve of mine because that could have just been fixed by having an extra pen icon there. Sorry, my rant's over. Now, getting into books, this could have been really great at, but it's kind of just okay at. First, you have to have DRM-free EPubs. Actually, there's some good resources out there like, you know, Project Gutenberg, the Internet Archive, that have DRM-free books that you can download and put on here if you want. So just a tip for you. But you'll see when I get into the meat of the book here, there's a lot of wasted space on the bottom and top. And then if you go sideways too, you can see there's even more wasted space. But you can do some things to like fit it to the width and whatnot. In my pros and cons video I did of this, I mentioned that I was going to look into EPubs. And I really did. I tried Calibre, which I used for PDFs and a little bit for EPubs. And then I tried to install CoReader here, which is definitely more involved than I think the average user that has a reMarkable is going to want to do. So I ended up not doing a video on that. Bottom line, there are ways to get a better reading experience on here, but they're not necessarily very simple. And like I mentioned, it's not waterproof. I do find myself reading on here sometimes, but I personally prefer my dedicated e-readers that are waterproof and are a little more pocketable as well. So quickly talking about the move aspect of it. I've mentioned this in videos before, but I don't find my handwriting is the neatest on here because when I'm writing, I feel like my hand is off the screen a lot of the time, but I do like it in the landscape mode. I can fit it under my laptop. It's very nice and compact. With the little lip here, it does create a nice resting spot for your hand. Similarly, if you're traveling on a plane, it fits in like a little tray table. I think it's a nice little laptop companion. This is just personal preference, but I actually don't find it very comfortable with the Folio here because my thumb kind of rests there in like an awkward manner. So if I'm writing, just jotting stuff down on just the device, I actually prefer to take it out like that and use it like this. And then I find that these little grooves they have here that kind of represent pages do have good grip. And like I mentioned earlier, the back has a nice grip and it's a nice size. But I personally wouldn't feel comfortable carrying it around in a bag or in a pocket like this because glass can break. And so yeah, for ebooks, it's nice that you can mark up on them, for example, and you can insert pages in between pages. Similarly, getting into PDFs, I think it's a little bit of a mixed bag. There are PDFs that I've enjoyed reading on here, but it kind of depends on the PDF. You can use hyperlinks, for example, here. You can't do that with the pen, but like I can click a hyperlink here. It'll take me to that page. But you can see rather small there. And then when I rotate horizontally here, it's almost like too big where you just need to be scrolling a bunch. I would like to see them implement some of the PDF tricks the Super now has where it just does like a half page when you keep scrolling through. So I think there's more optimization that needs to happen there. I will reference you to a video by David at Tablet Tech down there that talks about using Caliber with PDFs, which can be useful. You can set it to this custom resolution and kind of optimize your PDFs. But out of the box, I do think it needs some work. You can adjust to width or height, for example, if you want. But on the plus side, it does have color, so PDFs can look pretty good. And if they're not looking good, go ahead and put on the auto adaptive contrast filter, and that should help a little bit. So one of the biggest drawbacks of this device is certainly the price. I paid about $580 all in. The base price is $450 with the standard marker. I got the Marker Plus. I think if you're using a reMarkable, having the eraser is worth it. But then the Folio, I think, was $80. And then there are more expensive folios, like the leather ones or like the different weave ones, for example, that are colored. Now, in the e-ink world, one of the toughest things can sometimes be actually just trying a device. And so it's nice that you can go to a Best Buy if you're in the US, or if you're somewhere else, then maybe your local large electronics vendor might have it. But at a Best Buy, they normally have a Paper Pro, and they have a Paper Pro Move, and maybe even the reMarkable 2, I think still. You can go test them out, and that's really nice to kind of get a tactile feel for it and see if it's something that you could see yourself using. A lot of people, I think, were really shocked when this device came out of how expensive it was. So now I'm gonna talk about some accessories that I use that I think can help you reduce the cost a little bit. Like I mentioned, you could return the pen if you already have the bigger brother and already have a pen that you can use. The Folio, mine is a little worse for wear and tear right now, and I'm relatively careful with it. Yeah, it's like breaking there, like I mentioned. There are third-party manufacturers that make very similar cases, like the IO2 and some other ones that can save you a good amount of money. Those are in the $20 to $30 range. I would just get one of those, and then like every year, once it gets beaten up and dirty, just change it. You could buy 4 of those for the price of one of these. And then the fuse grip I've talked about in some other videos, but if you're writing for long periods, I think it fatigues my hand a lot less and is just very comfortable, and also works with the magnetic flap. I had to go through a bunch of different grips to see which one I could fit. And it comes in a 2-pack, so you can use it with another tablet or an iPad as well. And then I also have a keyboard where I can dock the reMarkable. It doesn't connect to the computer in that sense, but it's a really good reference for when I'm doing work or research or working on a video, and I just want to have it right there in front of me and just have my notes very visible. And then the last accessory that I use with it is actually related to battery life. This little USB-C bracelet here, like I'm traveling right now, I just find the battery life isn't the best on here. So this is a USB-C to C, and then I can just, if I'm drawing or something and I'm running out of battery, I can just plug it into my phone here, and then it'll top it up. And it does top up relatively quickly. So I'll link all these devices and accessories I'm talking about below if you're interested. But now onto the battery life. I tend to get about 2 days of use with this. If I'm really heavily using it, I can drain it in a day, which is very weird for me in the e-ink world. Like, I hadn't used my Nomad in a month because I've been using the Paper Pro Move a lot. And I turned this on and it was at 55% battery. I've been using it like the past day straight, and it's at 33% now. It is a little odd because in the e-ink world, normally you're used to charging things in weeks, whereas this is days, like couple of days, few days. But on the plus side, it does have quick charging, so it does top up pretty quickly. But it can give you a little bit of battery anxiety. So sometimes when I'm traveling, I'll also take my little portable anchor charger, which I can just top up here, or top up my phone, for example. I think that probably comes down to 2 things. The fact that you do end up using the front light a lot on this because the screen is a little darker in general. So to pop the vibrancy, you can put the screen up, and put the extra bright mode on, and then you can control it in the quick settings like that. And then the other one, my guess, is that it is a very thin, small, and light device. And so I think they actually gave precedence to the design versus packing in a bigger battery as well, because it is significantly lighter than like the Nomad, for example. With that Move name does come some compromises in battery life. And so specs-wise, it did change a little bit from the reMarkable Paper Pro. The RAM and the processor is slightly different, but I generally find the speed to be pretty similar. The only time I really get it to bog down is when I'm doing drawings with 5 layers, for example, and then it's a little slow to process, and by a little, I mean a lot. I think the 2 biggest competitors right now are probably the Supernote Nomad and the VWoods AI Paper Mini. I did a comparison video of those 2 if you want to check them out. But they are cheaper. They are a little more comfortable for note-taking, in my opinion, but they do suffer a little bit on the portability compared to the Move. And then the other one would maybe be the Palma Pro 2 that just came out. but that is more of a phone-sized device. So I think the note-taking capabilities on that are a little compromised in terms of space. I'm generally curious to know what you guys think will be the next reMarkable device. I always like to guess and hypothesize of what things are coming out. So I'm going to guess that they're going to do an A5 replacement with Gallery 3, but I'd love to know what you think in the comments. So I do want to talk about reMarkable and some of the changes they're making as a company now, which I think are pretty relevant.
Heads up that quietly the satisfaction guarantee did drop down to 50 days. It used to be 100 days, which to be honest, I always thought was a ridiculous amount of time. So I don't think this is that big of a deal. 50 days is better than most places that would have a 30-day return policy, but it does need to be through their web shop. And then one thing I did notice is that this used to be 3 devices, I think earlier this year and definitely last year, but it does seem like they've increased it to 5. And I think that makes sense because you could have a reMarkable 1, a reMarkable 2, a Paper Pro Move, and then the device that's going to come out next year. And you would be able to sync all of your reMarkable devices if you have one of each. So it's nice to know that you're getting a little more for that $299 a month you're paying for the Connect subscription. Earlier this year, there was a guy that was asking for circles consistently. He was trying a circle every day to have reMarkable add that. And they ended up adding it on this subreddit. There's someone named Fagard from reMarkable that has been directly asking for feedback. I gave some of the input about stuff that I've talked about in this video specifically. It's kind of cool that they're taking a direct line towards feedback in that sense.
For the right person, the reMarkable Paper Pro is a good device. I would like to see a lot of software changes come specifically for this device, whereas I don't feel like the Paper Pro Large has a lot of those issues. I think optimizations for PDFs, EPubs, the pen tool like I was talking about, those do need to change. And I heavily think that they should support co-reader or Kindle because the e-reading experience here is just not that great. But in the end, I will be returning this device. I'm going to be putting it back in the box and sending it back. I just initiated the return process before the 100 days. And like I mentioned, it's switching to 50 days. So just FYI, if you're buying this in the future. For me, the biggest competition isn't even the Nomad. I really use this more like for to-do lists, shot lists, and making quick notes like that. I can actually do that with my phone. I have an S Pen. And so when I'm just doing really quick notes like that, it's an OLED, so it only uses power on the illuminated pixels. And it's just one device I have to keep charging. Whereas the Move is something that I constantly have to be charging as well. And I end up rewriting a lot of my notes that I put on here so that they're neater in like a full note. That's just personal preference for me. I know obviously most people don't have a phone that has a pen in it, but that's why I have this, because it's always on me and I can always take notes with it quickly. I always find that I'm throwing this in a bag anyways. I rarely put it in a pocket. Probably 95% of the time I'm putting it in a bag. So I can do the same with something like this and it suffices my needs for pure note taking. Anyways, I just finished a very long sketch on the Paper Pro Move here. So you can check that out here if you want. Or if you want to see a tips and tricks video, you can see that here. Thanks for watching and I'll see you in the next one. In addition to the Connect subscription. I'm gonna just throw it there and it